republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a few announcements. To begin, we want to welcome PAC 215, Troop 215. They're working on their community participation and communication merit badge qualification. So welcome to the meeting tonight. We can comment in public session if you have anything you want to say. And just this time of year in the school district, I just wanted to pay particular attention to the high school drama Paradium Girls. I thought it was an excellent presentation, excellent theatrical performance by the high school students. There's also congratulations to the students at the high school who were inducted into National Honor. That happened also. It's the time for concerts. All the schools are having concerts, so we know that concerts are going to be first rate. The kids are going to be well prepared. And some have taken place, and some will take place through the middle of next week. So we look forward to them. So at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I just wanted to let everyone know that, as you all know, I'm sure we had a very island-wide event hour tonight. And we made the decision at that time to postpone our Odyssey of the Mind recognition. We weren't sure when the lights would go on, if they would stay on, and we didn't want to bring families out. And that, so we will look forward to honoring them at a later date, which will re-honor them. But tonight, we'll ask Mr. DeVito to continue the presentation we began last month on our proposed capital projects.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Good evening, everybody. We're going to talk a little more about our proposed capital plan. As you'll see in the presentation this evening, that the outline is similar to what we presented at the last meeting. So I'm going to touch on some of the things briefly that I spent more time on at the last meeting and go over some of the highlights of the update to catch everybody up to speed. So we're presenting a capital plan that includes, again, a few main items that's worth repeating. Improvements to indoor air quality in all of our buildings, which includes mechanical ventilation, which means that we're able to bring fresh air into the building without necessarily having, the only way to do it is open the windows. So we have mechanical ventilation that we want to make sure is in all the buildings, and air conditioning. Right now, there are some classrooms, some buildings that have it, and some don't. We want to make sure that it's uniform. So as we go through the different line items in the different buildings, I'm going to point out those line items that have that mechanical ventilation and air conditioning. We're also have some exciting educational space enhancements, and I'm going to highlight those as well. We're proposing that we fund this capital plan through a bond issue. And a bond issue, very simply, is a method, it's a financing method that allows districts to receive the total amount of funds that they need up front so that we can do the work, pay the contractors, and repay it over a term, similar to a home mortgage where you get the money up front to buy the house and then you repay it over a certain number of years. We don't necessarily need to borrow all the money at one time. We can do it like we did the last time that we had a big bond offering that we voted on in 2009 in two different what we call tranches or two different borrowing issues. And we're probably going to do that here as well. We don't need all the cash. So let's say that one summer, if you spread it out over a couple of summers, because we're talking about a lot of work. So the proposed capital plan that you're going to see this evening, again, similar to what we had last time with some important additions, was prioritized by the Board of Education Capital Project Subcommittee before coming here to the full board and to present it publicly. And what's most important here is that the overall cost, even though we've updated it since last meeting, will have no tax impact to the community. What we say is tax neutral or no impact, meaning that there isn't a requirement of additional tax levy funds to support what we're proposing here. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can do that. How can we say we're going to spend, let's say, almost $84 million and not have to have any additional tax impact? So I'm going to go into that again in more detail. Basically, what happens is that we have debt service in our budget now for what we call the school preservation plan, which was the last bond issue. There's a line item, if you go into our line-by-line budget, you'll see debt service principal, debt service interest. So it's those two line items, principal and interest, that we've had over the past, 10, 12, 13 years to repay the money that we borrowed for the school preservation plan. As this debt service rolls off, because it's ended that 15-year term, it's a placeholder there to put new debt service in. And when you take that new debt service, as long as it doesn't go above the level that we have, and I say net here, because the net debt service is offset with some building aid, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. That's our main goal, is to make sure that whatever costs that we incur over the next 15 or so years to repay the money that we would receive in order to do the work doesn't have any net difference from what is in the budget right now. So what's the process? First, if the board decides that it is in favor of going forward with this proposed plan, supported by a bond issue, we get their approval, and we're looking for that this evening in terms of consensus from the board that yes, we would like to move forward with this plan. At the next board meeting, they will sign off on whatever that final amount is, and then we'll be able to do all the different types of approvals that we need. We have to do an environmental impact study, and there are certain things that we have to do legally before we have this on the ballot for a public vote in May 2024. So for those of you that vote in school board elections, you'll see Proposition 1 typically is the budget. Proposition 2 over the past several years has maybe been approval of some sort of a capital project, but it has been funded either through our capital reserve fund, but needs separate approval. Similar to that it's a separate proposition asking the community for approval to go forward with the bond. So that's the process here, and it would be with the budget vote. If the community approves the bond ballot proposition in May 2024, assuming the board decides to go forward with it, then we submit plans to New York State, NYSED, New York State Education Department for approval, and that usually takes about 1 year to get that approved. So if we get the community's approval in May, our architects start working on the designs, they send the paperwork up to New York State, it takes about 1 year. If we're lucky, we can begin some of the work summer of 2025, and then the rest of the work summer of 2026. So it is a few years from the time that we're talking about it now until most of these projects are done. So here's an outline by building, similar to what we had at the last presentation, but you see here, the numbers changed a little bit. So what I've done over the past month is I've spoken with our financial advisors to find out what is that, let's say, magic number, total amount that we cannot exceed if we don't want to have any type of tax impact. So what's involved with that? What are the interest rates? And what kind of building aid are we going to get for these projects? So it has been confirmed to us that when we talked about the new science marine research building, the new marine science research building, the new carpentry and robotics classrooms, very important projects that we want for our students, and I'll talk about why those are important in a minute. We do not get building aid for these two projects because they're new construction. And based on the amount of students that we have, we will not get building aid. I needed to confirm that over the past month, and I did get confirmation that we should expect building aid on these projects. So that helps to determine what this number is. However, you may be saying, well, why is the number more? Because the borrowing rates have started to come down. So because the cost of borrowing is less now than it was a month ago, and the projection is that those interest rates are coming down, we can actually do more because the cost of borrowing is as great. So we talked about the Marine Science Center last time, and there's a special slide on that, so I'm just going to kind of move on. The carpentry program, there's a separate slide on that one. Cafeteria reconstruction, something we feel is really important. I got some additional slides on that. And this new wrestling area for $4 million. That's why that's in green. We heard some input from some community members. At the last board meeting, we had a chance to talk to members of the subcommittee, and we really wanted to see what we could do to fit in this new wrestling space. So what we're gonna do, and I have a floor plan here to show you in more detail, we're gonna reconstruct the current wood shop and the technology office, the athletic office, and the photo lab into a wrestling area with additional bathrooms, lockers, and showers. That when it's not wrestling season, when we don't have the mats down, we could also use as what we call an auxiliary room, maybe a testing space for students where they take tests, or a meeting space for the high school, because they really don't have a lot of meeting areas, whether it's department or more than one department. So we're calling it the new wrestling area, but it's really wrestling / auxiliary space at the high school by repurposing, reconstructing some of the programs that are there. So this was the slide that showed what the new Marine Science Center is going to look like. This is from the bus lane, here's the pond, here's the floor plan. We talked about this 2-story structure. This is that new technology room that we're looking to, and we call it technology, but it's really going to be carpentry and wood shop, robotics. And what we're thinking about doing for these 2 classrooms over here is using that space to house what we're calling an alternative school, a special kind of a program for students that may not be succeeding in the traditional high school, but they're giving them in the building itself a new space for them where they can have their classes there that we're hoping will engage kids and keep them progressing in their education. When we talked at the last meeting, we were thinking of bringing that space down for architectural design, but as we've given this space some more thought, we realized that it's probably better to use this for alternative educational program and keep the design classroom where it is. We also talked about the high school cafeteria, really reconceiving what this space is right now. It has a cavernous feel, so we're looking to make it more intimate, make it a place where kids want to hang out. We got some feedback from our students there that the cafeteria isn't really a place they really want to spend time in, even though it has like the best view around. So we're going to do some, just some preliminary thoughts of maybe bringing some wood elements into it, bringing the ceiling down, some acoustical features, changing the service line, making it in the center, and having it more of a college campus type of a look. And maybe also having some seating along the window there, which will add some seating to the room itself and allow students who maybe want to work and some privacy as well as some of the group tables. So this new wrestling space that we were talking about, this is where it would be. So right now what's there is the wood shop. We have the photo lab over here. We also have the gym, to the weight room and the cardio room. That would stay where it is. There are 2 offices over here as well. So if we made this whole space the new wrestling area, that would allow us to be able to really house the high school program, which is what the request was. So this wood shop then goes over here. So it combines what we're looking to do for carpentry, which is create a CTE program for carpentry. Photo lab, we'd look to move that somewhere else in the building. And the offices, we're looking to maybe use some of the offices. We may be able to put an office over here. So it's reconceiving the space that's there and making this the new wrestling area. What are the benefits of a marine science lab? We went over this last time. I just would like to highlight some of the sophisticated equipment that we're looking to put in this space. Some flow-through tanks where we can create model reefs and have some marine life study tanks, which really allows students the advantage to do advanced marine science research that properly prepares them for science competition. What we've been talking about for the past several years is how can we get our science students to really be eligible to compete in some of these competitions, since we're so far away from some labs like Stony Brook and some other places where some of the other students at other school districts use for doing some of their research. We also want to support programs like aquaculture, marine lab technology, and marine repair. And we've really been talking about this blue economy. These are these future fields that we see on Long Island where our students can get jobs. So we think that's going to be a great fit for them. Also, to highlight the benefits of the expanded tech space, we talked about this full carpentry program that we're looking to bring in-house instead of sending kids out to BOCES, because we have such a strong interest among our current students, and a designated area for a robotics lab that includes a robotics testing area, and this new alternative learning center that I mentioned. the new large space at the high school for the wrestling program. The additional bathroom, showers, and lockers will be so that the students don't have to then walk over to the gym. They'll have everything that they need right there, which we think will be a really great advantage for those athletes. At the high school, this remains unchanged. We still want to reconstruct the locker rooms, boys and girls. We still want to put turf for the baseball and baseball and softball fields, right? Synthetic turf in the infields. We want to replace the bleachers in the gym and the pool and replace that turf field because it has a useful life max of about 15 years. And so if we plan accordingly, we will be able to replace that turf field. Pool deck reconstruction, we want to replace certain ceramic tiles, new waterproofing, sanitary lines, the locker room, the air handling units. Little by little, we want to replace some of the air handling units that haven't been replaced already. So we want to spend $3 million there to replace some of the air handling units, some interior wall work that has some cracks and some interior doors. I just would like to note that when I spoke to our architect over the past couple of days, he said that if we can add $20,000 for vinyl asbestos tile removal to the high school and to the middle school, we'll be able to expedite the review on the field. So it's a strategy for getting New York State Education Department to review this project more quickly. If we say that we're going to pair it with $20,000 for vinyl asbestos tile removal. That was a discussion that came up after this presentation was sent to the board last Friday. So I did add it in as a note tonight that I will be updating this for the January meeting to include $20,000 at the high school and $20,000 for the middle school so that we hopefully get an expedited review on those athletic fields. So this is our total number, is about $46.7 million for the high school. Lido Elementary and the middle school, the reason why we have these two together is this whole complex is considered one site from a facility standpoint, even though it's two different schools. Here, ventilation system. And you may ask, well, why don't we have ventilation system as a line item in the high school? It's because it's the only building that actually has a fully operational HVAC system in the sense that they have the heating, they have the mechanical air, they have the air conditioning. That's why our first item here are the new instructional spaces, the marine science building, carpentry, robotics, cafeteria, and wrestling area. In every other building that we're presenting here throughout the district, the first item is the mechanical air and the air conditioning. This is the rest of Lido in the middle school. We also want to reconstruct the lockers over in the middle school. That's original going back a lot of years. It hasn't really been renovated and all these. This is a new item that now that we realize that the borrowing costs are coming down, I'll tell you something that we took out of Lindell. We said there is room to start replacing some of the windows in the middle school. There are some areas, especially in the 300 corridor, where the windows are opaque and they really need to be replaced. So we're going to try to do about $2 million worth of window replacements. Some interior doors even though we've been doing doors a little bit at a time, there are still some interior doors that need to be replaced, and they have to have side lights and different kind of glazing. And then here is the athletic field replacement at Veterans Field. That same note about the $20,000 for the VAT removal. Lindell, again, first line item, ventilation and air conditioning. More expensive here because it's a much bigger building. What needs to be done. And this bulkhead, as you may remember from the previous presentation, we had a $3.3 million placeholder there. This was the one area that we went back trying to figure out what we could do to fit in that new wrestling space. And we spoke about with the architect that we can do the shoring up of the bulkhead in phases. So if we spend about $300,000 to repairs for the western end of the existing bulkhead, we'll shore up what we need, and little by little, we can keep year after year fixing and replacing slowly the bulkhead over at Lindell. So that's the main area, that's why you see this is in blue, that we reduced in order to fit the wrestling area and also some of the window replacement at the middle school. So between reducing the scope here, we actually, shaved off about $3 million. The borrowing costs allowed us to go from about 81 million to about close to 84 million, and that's how we fit in those other projects. Everything else in the presentation is the same as what we presented last go around last month. 430,000 for some playground reconstruction, e-school again, top line item, ventilation, mechanical air, some playground work at east, some window replacements, exterior doors, no change here from what we talked about the last meeting, about $7 million at east. At west, again, ventilation, mechanical air, about $5 million for that, some playground construction, no change from what we talked about at the last meeting. And then some work at the public library, no change here. As some of you may know, the school district does own the public library. We're responsible for what we call the building envelope. We're not responsible for the day-to-day maintenance of that building. So how does this proposed bond project benefit the community? Just to sum up, I just want to say that as we consider a bond issue to propose the fund, to fund the proposed capital plan, it's important to keep in mind that the bond issue is an advantageous way to plan and complete large projects, like over $80 million. The reason HOP recently passed something that was over $50 million a couple of weeks ago. They had a vote without creating a spike in the tax levy. So every year, if we're following our budget, we usually put a certain amount of money in the line item in the actual annual operating budget, or we use capital reserve fund money, million, 2 million, whatever we may have in the capital reserve. So last year we had 5.2 million. But if you want to do something large, like air conditioning, like putting in mechanical ventilation, like doing a Renew Marine Science research building, the only way to really do that is through a bond issue, because otherwise we'd be asking the community for a huge increase in the tax levy, and it's just not a really stable, good way to plan. The fact that our debt service that we did for when the community passed the bond in 2009 is retiring, is a way to very gracefully, so to speak, just replace what's falling off with something new, so that there's no spike, everything's level, and whatever falls off is replaced so that we can do new things, more things, and keep our buildings in a good state of repair. Our goal, again, is no tax impact, and I just want to say it again, that we do not want any additional tax impact by this bond project. In summary, the proposed bond will provide enhanced educational programs and facilities that will support enhanced educational and career opportunities, as I mentioned, with cutting-edge programming, a likely increase in property values of our community members because the property will be associated with a high-performing school district and environmental sustainability. If there are any questions and comments from the board, I'd like to take those now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Anybody from the board want to begin? I'll begin then. Just thank you for the presentation, Mr. Guido. Just to clarify for me, why did marine science get the nod in terms of all the sciences in high school in terms of consideration?
Yeah, sure, I'll start, and then Dr. Gallagher will jump in. First of all, we want to capitalize on our wonderful natural resources that we have, being a district on the Barrier Island, being between the bay and between the beach. You know, we know we have a built-in natural resource, and our community itself, in the fact that residents choose to live here, you know, it's something that's close to their heart, marine science. And then we have the blue economy. Look ahead, Dr. Gallagher.
If you remember, Dr. Ryan, one of the big things that came out of the 5-year strategic plan feedback was more opportunities in marine sciences from our country. That's number one. The lab itself will allow our students to do some top-level research that may help them get further in contests like the Regeneron without having to travel to a place like Stony Brook. And, you know, to travel to a place like Stony Brook in New York City from Palm Beach is a bit of a hike. So building this kind of lab where we can do the flow-through tanks will allow our students to do that kind of research without traveling far. And finally, it opens the door to all kinds of different new careers, which, as Mr. Guido stated, are highlighted as not just science research, but technology research, aquaculture, that are highlighted, you know, by studies that say these are going to be up-and-coming careers on Long Island in the next 20 years that our kids are going to be competing for jobs for. So it seems like of all the areas for us as a Barrier Island community, and with the feedback from our community that they support it, that would be a good place to put that resource.
So that's what parents said in terms of the strategic plan, in terms of input. In terms of kids personally involved in marine research, because to me, I'm still open to the idea, I'm just trying to figure it out around the issue of equity. In terms of how many kids personally would be enrolled in marine research programs, and is this an effort to try to make this a more attractive elective or science for kids to take?
Yeah, I think both of those things are true. We do have, I think, 3 sections of marine science, 5 right now. But, the board has asked us to grow our science research program in general, and that is really, the area that we seem best poised to focus on in terms of really entering and being competitive in those science competitions.
Yeah, I guess I'm happy to see it in terms of as a site for visitation by elementary and middle school kids as well. Maybe just kind of making it such an attractive option as kids at that age and at that level of education will aspire to become involved. My second concern is the issue of storage in the high school. If you go into the high school now and you go into the cafeteria, there are a lot of things in that cafeteria that are being stored there. If you go into the library, as we did a couple of weeks ago for the dedication of the library, and gratitude to Mr. Kaminsky for his efforts in getting us money for refurbishing the high school, things are there that really don't look like they belong there. It's like a problem there. If you go into the gym and go up above the pool area, you'll find that there's storage there in terms of that. So is there any consideration in the cafeteria? Because there's so much wall space up above that isn't any concern given in terms of doing something with what I see, and I think others see in high school, storage problems in this proposal.
Well, it hasn't been a specific need that was addressed in terms of what you just said in terms of the district. We know we can always use additional storage and reuse spaces throughout the district, like for example, Liddell and the Nike Center, and areas not just for, let's say, Liddell, but for the district itself. I can certainly explore with the high school what we may need and also to figure out what is actually being stored in those spaces that you just identified to see if we really need it or maybe we can, try to get rid of it if it's not needed. But I would like to find out what we can do in terms of storage just from a facility standpoint, because I know that we talked about perhaps building some sort of another level over the cafeteria, that our architect said that really wasn't feasible based on the existing pile structure that we have. So I have to really ask what the needs are, what we can do to accommodate those needs, perhaps in the cafeteria space, without incurring a huge cost because it would require additional support structure.
I appreciate that, because I do see it, like casual walk through in terms of the building, in terms of those 3 sites specifically. I just think it tracks from the difference of those settings.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And my last point is just, in these proposals, in these, guesstimates or estimates in terms of cost, is there leeway for change orders? Is there leeway for change supplies? Because we all learned with COVID that sometimes things aren't delivered on time, and sometimes we have to wait for materials, and sometimes we have to wait an amount of time for materials to come before we can build the construction. So are those factors built into the costs, and if so, roughly would be the.
Sure. Yes, and that's an important part, and that's why I have the note here throughout the presentation that includes not just the hard costs, which are the construction costs, but we have 18% for contingencies to cover architectural and engineering, which we know we need, construction management, testing, legal fees, and any cost escalation or unforeseen conditions. So that 18% should be sufficient. And as you also may recall, we've been talking about some of these projects over the years, and we have increased the price of some of these line items that we've been talking about for, let's say, 3 or 4 years to keep up with the costs. So these cost figures are updated. We have this 18% factor in there for exactly what you just discussed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. DeVito, for the presentation. Sitting on the subcommittee with Ms. Conway, yourself, the architect and business office, we appreciate all the work you put into this.
Thank you.
A few things. One regarding the marine science building. Really excited to see that coming back to the forefront of our district. The pond was, when I was in high school, that pond was not really utilized, and I'm happy that we're utilizing a lot more than we could in the past. If it's possible, when we're reviewing the scope of the construction, could we add some other elements of the sustainability into the project design? Like, I know the rest of the district has solar panels. Could we incorporate solar panels on there and almost make it like not a hands-on, but a viewable presentation of, us utilizing clean energy?
I can certainly find out.
Something like that, maybe like geothermal heat, just those concepts, because we can utilize, green building practices in this, we can utilize it within our programs. The other thing is, and I know I've brought it up before, is even though we have these nice large scopes in a project management guides, if we can really keep mindfulness of keeping the bid processes as tight as possible, I know we do the best we can, but if we can choose, economical, materials, and make sure that we get the right amount of supplies, so there's not a lot of waste. If we can trim $15,000, $20,000 off each one of these projects, we'll have funding for other things. So I just don't want us to lose sight of that, because it's such a big project, so much scope, and we're throwing taxpayers are offering a lot of funding for this to provide building constructions that we just be as mindful of this throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and we'll definitely, always look, and I think as we talked about in the subcommittee, we always try to find that sweet spot between making sure that we have durable materials that are going to last and not, overbuilding or not overscoping, because we certainly don't want to have that as well. So we look to have something that we say is going to last, it's going to be durable, it's going to be attractive, but we also want to be mindful of costs and have it be, in a sense, also good value. We want to make sure that there's good value there and that it's, materials that are reasonable, durable, but nothing that you would say is extravagant.
Also, I could be wrong, but I thought that the proposal did include solar panels on the roof, because I know there's like a small greenhouse on the side that I can't see, but I think the reason we weren't going to do the greenhouse on the roof is that they wanted to put solar panels.
That could be true, Dr. Gallagher.
Also want to bring up my appreciation for us renovating the cafeteria, because I know that we're really improving our food choices. It's important, but we want to get to that an environment that they're happy to eat and they enjoy food as well, not just where they don't want to eat. So I think that goes in part with the environment for our nutrition, for our nutrition
Yes,
changes that were made.
Thank you.
Mr. Conway?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. DeVito. Mr. Pinto brought up some good points about the geothermal heat and solar panels, so I'm really glad you brought that up, thank you. And I was also thinking about the cafeteria as well, because I know in the past, the lines where the students would pick up their food, sometimes they were in service, they needed service those lines. So this reconstruction will fix all of that, so the food will be piping hot or at the perfect temperature for our students.
That's part of the goal here, is to have some new equipment that keeps the food at the right temperature, that kids are going to want to feel excited about it. Yes, absolutely.
Now, we haven't really spoken yet on our subcommittee yet about which projects are going to be prioritized first. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, well, for example, part of it depends on the queue. What we say is what's projects that are waiting. So there are different types of reviews. There's the architectural review, mechanical review. When you bring and submit plans up to the New York State Education Department, the different sub areas that review the plans have different waiting times. So, for example, one of Mr. Grillo's ideas about putting in the additional $20,000 of some work that needs to get done to remove some of the vinyl tile was so that this is a quick review, right? Just the replacement of an athletic field was a quick review. So we can pair it, because it has to be paired with something inside the building in order to get us to get building aid. So if we say, okay, yeah, we'll replace some of the vinyl tile that we know we try to do a little bit each year, it could be quickly reviewed. It doesn't have to go through a really long wait time, because it's a simple project. And maybe this is something that we can do this summer of 2025. The other items, I really can't predict at this point. It all depends on what happens over the next year in terms of project review. I wish I had more information for you. We hope to do some work in the summer of 2025. We hope to do the bulk of the work in summer 2026, right, which is about 2.5 years from now. I doubt, I'll have to check with Mr. Grillo, but we need to think of summer of 2027 for the remaining part. But I think if the board decides to go forward with the proposed plan, we go forward with the bond, the vote passes by the community, we start doing the designs. Maybe I'd like to get back to the board at that time, if that's the case, and then we can try to get a sense of, with all of the different projects and the plans that are submitted, which ones do we want to do first. I know our goal is to try to at least get the ventilation and the air conditioning done first, but that is a complicated review, so I don't know if we could say that we can start that work in the summer of 2025. I know that would be our goal in terms of that's what we would want to do, but that's a more complicated review as opposed to a few, right? Because it's different people who are reviewing different types of plans, whether it's just mechanical or it's just an architectural review. Okay, but I know that from what we would like, we want to move, as quickly as possible on the mechanical ventilation and the air conditioning.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm very happy to see that you put in the new wrestling area. I think it's important that we listen to those parents who came in last meeting, and they really had a lot to say that was very valuable points. So I appreciate this work putting that in. Also, I like the idea of putting the alternative classroom there, because then the students will be able to take part during the day, and they'll still be part of the high school population, and they'll still have their space when needed.
Thank you.
So we'll be able to mix that, which
Yes.
I think would be beneficial for students. Just one more question. When you stated at the end, how does the proposed bond project benefit the community? And you talk about how substituting the retiring debt service with new debt service. Is there a way we'll be able to really explain that well to our community so they can understand it?
Sure.
Only because I've gotten some feedback, whereas they don't really understand it
Sure.
or see it.
So how about if at the next board meeting, when we finalize the scope, if I put up a chart that actually shows what we're paying, let's say in the current year, what we're going to pay the following year and the year after that, and then to show, let's say, $5.3 million of debt service. It's just not there anymore because that we've already repaid that part of the bond that we borrowed, 12 years ago. And that gives us room to absorb $5 million of new money, right? Of new debt service, right? And that's really what it is. So you'll see a chart, like a line item up here that says to keep flat what's in the budget now, factoring in the building aid that we're getting, this is where the level needs to be. Now, the building aid that we're getting now, about $2.7 million, will not be the same as the building aid we get with the new project, right? Because we have those two items that are not going to get building aid. So let's just say our current level is about $8.1 million total debt service. It will be lower, right, than the current. Not that you'll say, oh, we're going to be saving money because, let's say, $700,000 lower. No, because we're going to get $700,000 less in building aid. So it nets out to be the same. So I can show that on a chart. I didn't want to get too technical here because I just wanted to go over the scope again. But at the next board meeting, I'd be happy to have a slide or two that explains some of the financing and how a certain amount of debt service falls off. It allows room for new debt service. The overall level in the budget will be a little bit lower because this project brings in a lower amount of building aid, but it nets to the same level.
I think that would be great because we show a lot of transparency.
Sure.
to the numbers. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. First off, thank you for this presentation. I think one of the most exciting things about it is it includes every one of our buildings. It's not just the high school, just the middle school, all of our elementaries as well, and that it's tax neutral. I love that. Just a quick question. You talk about the area where the wrestling room will be. Have you given thought to where the photo lab will go and where those other things that are housed there now? Like, what are the opportunities
Sure,
within the high school? Because I know real estate is definitely premium.
it sure is. Yes, it is. So a couple of things that we've thought about is, right, is if that we create this new science building, right, that we're going to use for marine science, some of those classrooms where that program is being housed currently then gets freed up, right? And that can help us. We're going to create this new build-out space underneath the west wing of the actual high school, where we're going to put the carpentry, wood shop. We're going to put robotics over here, and that also frees up some space. So if we free up space by building up a new building, building up this space, then it should be able to give us a little bit more room in the actual building itself to move photo lab up. So that's really the idea of just shuffling things around a little bit within the building and taking advantage of some of these new build outs with space that's really new space.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. DeVito.
Thank you.
Student education. Questions and comments from the public on tonight's agenda only? Treasurer's report for October 2023, all necessary. Approval of minutes for executive session and regular meeting of November 14th, 2023, executive session of November 15th, 2023, and executive session of November 28th, 2023. Have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Presentation to superintendent?
I asked Ms. Dolan to read the walk-on resolution for tonight. Resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the stipulation of settlement and release with regard to a student discussed in executive session or referred to as student A, and authorizes the board president to execute it on behalf of the district. Second resolution, resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the stipulation of settlement and release with regard to a student discussed in executive session and refers to as student B, and authorizes the board president to execute it on behalf of the district.
Okay, there are two resolutions.
Motion.
Ms. Donald, two resolutions?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we'll vote on the first one. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote no. Second resolution, may I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote no.
I ask the board to consider item 1, personnel matters to be considered.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Item 2, certificated personnel.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Items 3 and 4 together, approval of agreements.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Kelsey?
Yes.
Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Item 5 is adoption of the new policy on workplace violence prevention, and just some background on this, we're suspending the first and the second reads and going right to adoption. It's a policy that's been in place in workplaces in the past, and just last month, the state required that schools adopt it as well. So we're adopting the policy that was drafted by our attorneys, but we may revisit that with some revisions in schools kind of wrestle with that a little bit more. So I ask the board to consider item 5.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion? Ms. Delsey?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Item 6 and 7 are first and second reading policy, no action is required. I would ask the board to consider items 8 through 10.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
I would just like to, I'm sorry.
That's okay, I was on a roll. Go ahead.
No, I just want to thank everybody who served on the policy committee concerning these policies. Dr. Ryan, Dr. Patasha was there as well. Dr. Natali, Ms. DeVito, so and Dr. Gallagher, thank you all for all of your hard work on the policies.
Any other discussion? No. Okay, Ms. Delsey?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Dr. Ryan, I think Mr. DeVito had wanted to get consensus from the board. Mr. DeVito, is that right?
Yes, please, if possible, Dr. Geller, I'd like to know if the board is comfortable with us moving forward with this capital plan, and if so, for the next meeting, I'll just talk to council, talk to the architect, and find out if there's anything specific that needs to be on the agenda, so that there's something called SECRA, which is an environmental review, and things of that sort, so that everything is timely if we go forward with the ballot vote. So I was just hoping, as a board, if we get consensus to move forward with the plan as presented.
So no resolution is needed, it's just a roll call vote.
That would be helpful.
Is that okay, council?
Yeah, just a consensus of the board and that would be sufficient.
All right, very good, thank you. Ms. Delsey?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Pinto?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also wanted to just thank, I probably should have said initially, Mrs. Conway was sort of serving on this committee for a couple of years in terms of other stakeholders looking at different areas of the district that might need improvement in terms of capital projects. So thank you for your wisdom and your energies and your recommendations. Board of Education, additional new or old business, if any?
That's right.
Ms. Conway, please.
First, I just want to give the middle school and West School a gigantic shout out for their wonderful concerts. Ms. Delsey and I were able to attend the middle school concert and the West School concert, and our students blew us away with their talent. And the staff that works with all of our kids, they put in 110%. You can see that the students were happy to be there, the parents were happy to be there. It was just a wonderful concert, so I want to thank all of you for all of your hard work. I was also able to go to the sports awards. Ms. Delsey was also there, and I have to say sometimes it was only standing room only. With all the parents and the students within the high school auditorium, it's such a testament to our coaches and to Mr. Epstein, and to our students and to our parents, because the parents have to take the kids to the sports and pick them up at times. But you can really see how much our kids love their sports teams and how much our coaches love our kids. And I really find that to be it was a very special time. So I want to give them a big thank you. I would also like to say that the Radiant play at the high school was amazing, amazing. It just blew me away. The way they put out the content is just spectacular. One more thing, I heard that we have a center-based site that I would love to see in our creative program. I've heard such wonderful things about it, Dr. Gallagher. I would love to have a time to go visit.
Sure, absolutely. People can certainly look for the board to visit, and I was just share that we'll see routinely comes to visit pre-K sites, secondary sites. They really speak and really learn very fast.
That's good news to hear, and that's a lot of hard work to our staff, to everybody, so thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ryan.
Anybody else? Ms.
I just had a quick question, and I know that Mr. Myers did send a letter home, but if you could just elaborate maybe, Michael or Dr. Gallagher, on what happened today at the high school with the smell, what caused it, and if it's going to be fixed or it's fixed for that matter.
Sure, I'm having trouble talking it also, let my computer.
So there was an odor that was definitely bothersome to staff and students. And based on some research that was done, it was that there was some sort of a fan, an exhaust that didn't failed to work properly, and was then some of the fumes that usually exhausted out the building was getting brought back in through the ductwork. So they turned the boiler off to try to see, to try to figure it out. They figured it out, and then they had to turn the boiler back on. So the object of what we're going to do between now and tomorrow morning is to see what we can do to address that failure, that system failure. The good news is that the way the wind was blowing today, I guess it was coming from the southwest and west, it was working against us. But tomorrow the wind is supposed to be coming from the northwest and should be blowing everything away. So we're addressing it. It was something that was unexpected in terms of this system failure. It wasn't a gas mount, and that was originally what was thought. It wasn't gas at all. It was just the actual odor from the exhaust from the current system that's normally mechanically not exhausted away easily, was because that fan wasn't working. It was being sucked back into the building.
So just to be clear, the heat is turned back on now,
Yeah, it was turned
but the
back on.
smell hasn't been necessarily fixed, but we don't think it'll come into the school. In the event that it comes into the school again,
Yeah.
clearly, obviously, it's not a safety concern. Sounds
Right.
like that's been eliminated, which is, I'm grateful to hear
Yeah.
that. But if they had to turn the heat back off, how long can the school sustain?
What I would suggest is just trying, and I mentioned this to Mr. Myers,
Yep.
is perhaps relocate some classrooms
Okay.
if the smell got bad in those areas.
Okay.
And then if it became worse, we would have to think about something else, but I don't want to go there at this point. I mean, we know we want to open, we know we want to see how it is. We want to see if whatever they're working on is fixed. I asked Mr. Kramer, who's our director of facilities, to check in with me first thing in the morning, before school starts, to let me know how things are. I asked Mr. Myers to start working on a plan B, just in case he needed to move some classrooms, some classes to a different part of the building, so that it wouldn't be bothersome to staff and students. And we're gonna play it by ear.
Thank you.
Real quick, two things. One, I just want to say to all the students and the families who participated in the Student Life Parade, it was great seeing everyone out there, especially the varsity, girls varsity high school team on showing off their talents on the float. One thing, Mr. DeVito, I know that Mr. Swan gave an update about free reduced lunch district-wide. If you can just give a quick update for additional edification so parents are aware of everything.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. So the government changed its threshold for eligibility in what's called a community participation program. It had been 40%. So prior to the change in the government regulation, a district had to be at least 40% eligible for free lunch. They changed that to 25% because our district is at 28%. We weren't eligible prior, but we are now, and that became effective December 1st. And what's wonderful about this new program, which gets the new change in eligibility, is it lasts for 4 years. So we're locked into this free meals program for 4 years, going forward from effective this past December 1st. So if any student wants to go to the service line for breakfast or lunch, they're able to get one meal free of charge, regardless of what the income level is for their families. It's free for everybody because we reached that 25% threshold as a district.
One meal per day, not two.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, if a student wanted to go for that second meal, they wouldn't have to pay for that. The program is just for the one meal.
So, and also, if we have increased participation, that does help support our farm to table plan.
Sure. So we already noticed, right, that our participation was bumped up since December 1st, which is great news because we still have the same fixed costs, except for a little bit on the food side, but we still have the same labor costs, which is our big fixed cost, right? So we bring in more revenue, and not only that, but we get a higher level of revenue from the government than what we're charging for the actual meal. So we get a higher reimbursement level for each meal. We're also serving more meals, and that'll help our bottom line, which is great for the program.
Thank you. Yes? Okay, questions and comments from the public? Okay, if you after doing it, you don't know the procedure, in fact, you have a question or comment, you're welcome to approach the mic there. Please give your name and address, and everybody has 3 minutes to make your concern.
Hello, my name is Danny Harker. I'm a parent and student at one of the schools here in Long Beach. My address is 318 East Bay Drive, Long Beach. First, I want to thank everybody here for allowing me to speak here today. Second, I want to apologize in advance by seeming a little passionate. Just this topic strikes a little close to home because it involves the safety of my child, who's a student here. I will be vague with a lot of information because I do understand the need for confidentiality. And I would also point out that I am a practicing attorney in the New York court system. The reason I bring that up is I will be making some statements with regards to legalities. I just would like some deference, perhaps, from everyone with some understandings that I might have some knowledge with regards to those areas. It's come to my attention, not through any information provided by anybody in the administration or the school board, that a student in one of the schools allegedly committed an e-felony by bringing a knife to a school and possibly threatening another student. That student has, from my understanding, been transferred to my daughter's class. My issue is not seeking information regarding the incident. I reached out to administration because I'm seeking information regarding what steps are being taken to ensure the safety of my daughter and the other students going forward. I'm looking for information as to what policies the school board and the school administration set forth with regards to these things. I've read the code of conduct and other information, and when approaching administration, the general information I received was, we handled it internally, we can tell you nothing, don't be concerned. As a parent in the current situation, the climate that we live in, no information is, in my opinion, not an acceptable answer. There is a balance to be struck between confidentiality of students' rights, and I fully appreciate that, and I'm not seeking any violation of that. But there is also a balance to a parent's need to have information to protect their child and have an understanding of what transpires in their child's classroom and what could be going forward. So I would ask this board, I'm not obviously asking for a response tonight, but I would ask them to examine the policies and procedures going forward as to what information should be disseminated to parents, to other students, because to get this information secondhand through the gossip mill, through the rumor mill is damaging, because I'm sure much of the information which I'm intentionally being paid and not talking about here tonight is inaccurate. But there is some truth that was there, and there are steps that I'm being forced to take, which I submit FOIL requests from the police department. I will be submitting FOIL requests to the Board of Ed, because the information I received was that the district's lawyers or counsel have informed the administration that no information can be given. And that's where I stand here today. So I come here again as a concerned parent. Concerned parent who now potentially has a child who was deemed was inappropriate to be in their original class, now in my child's class, with no other information about what transpired or what steps are being taken to protect my child. The hypothetical statement that administration may feel comfortable having their hypothetical child in that class, although I appreciate the sentiment behind it, doesn't strike home with me anymore, because it's not my hypothetical child, it is my child, and my child is there in that classroom today. So I appreciate you listening to me, and any information that can be given, because just to be clear, there's been no phone call, no letter, no email to any parent, either of the class where the student was in, or the other classes or the class where the student was transferred to. So that's where I stand today, and I would just seek some information, some assistance going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Announcements? Long Beach Classroom.
Hang on, I just want to address really that quickly and say thank you for speaking up. I'm sure that somebody will get to you and at least give you the information that you can have. Obviously, you know, with confidentiality and all that. But I can just share with you, I had 3 children in this district. One has now graduated, but 2 of my children are here. And I hear you as a parent, as a board member, but also I am listening to you from the lens of what, you know, how I might view that in your shoes. So your message is well received and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I just didn't want you to sit down without any response.
Thank you.
Long Beach Classroom Teachers Association.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'd like to start this evening by welcoming our newest members who are appointed on tonight's agenda. I'd also like to thank everyone who's been involved so far with this capital project tonight. It's been fun. I thank the board for continuing that process tonight with the act that you made in tonight's agenda or tonight's meeting. I remember this process as a newer teacher over a decade ago with our first bond, and it's truly exciting to see all the opportunities that we were afforded as the original bond that came through. I was just looking at the original renderings this past week of what the middle school could look like and will look like, and it's almost spot on. And I think all the opportunities that have been provided through the expansion into buildings and the turf fields, and I look forward to seeing this process move forward and hopefully be accepted and approved by our community. Taking a moment to just talk a little bit about the organization as well. As you know, it's extremely important for us, the Long Beach teachers, to give back to the community and organizations that support Long Beach community. So once again, this year, coming off the tails of a huge success with the Making Strides fundraiser, where we raised over $6,000, we next are going to turn our efforts to food insecurity here in Long Beach, where we were able to raise and donate $1,400 to the Long Beach Catholic, no, they have a name. I know it's the St. Mary's Food Pantry, but the Long Beach Catholic and the Food Pantry, St. Mary's Food Pantry, to help with the holidays coming up and the meals they provide. After that, in November, in December, we turned our efforts capturing the spirit of the holiday season, and we're able to raise and partner with the Little St. Nick Foundation and raise over $1,450 for the Little St. Nick Foundation, which is a wonderful organization that has students creating gift bags for other children and donating them to children as they enter the local pediatric hospitals. So with that, with a welcoming gift, very proud to be part of partnering with that organization and actually being known as now one of their sponsors. And we look forward to entering this new year and continuing our partnerships with all the wonderful organizations here within the community. And look forward to entering this new year and hoping and wishing you all enjoy this holiday season carries with you through the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Administrative Supervisor. Yes.
Good evening, welcome. First, I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the administrators and staff who stayed at school today to help the students make sure they made it safely. There were many students in our middle school for different events and those district-wide as well, so we want to thank them for being here. We also want to wish everyone a very restful and happy holiday season and a prosperous new year. Thank you.
Of the SBA. Our Teacher Association.
Good evening, everybody. It seems like the consensus is from pre-K to high school parents are very excited about the free lunch opportunities because when they determine the poverty level on New York, they often forget that the cost of living in Long Island is a lot more expensive. And then we get a lot of families, at least I know roughly in Toledo, that weren't meeting that poverty level, but they were still struggling to pay for those full lunches. And this is going to be something that's very beneficial for a lot of the students, and they're very grateful. So we're also thankful to Mr. Krause.
Thank you. Okay, they have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All All in favor?
Happy holidays,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Just want to note that the scouts get a test for the next meeting that they, maybe a take-home test that they'll send back. Check them out, Thank you, everybody. Have a good holiday. See you in 2022.